You're listening to My Pandemic, a Barnwood Trust podcast that explores the experiences of disabled people and people with mental health challenges during this time of social distancing and lockdowns. We talk about the challenges and the things that can bring strength during this time. This episode, I spoke with Katie and Scott Peacock, a couple who have each found challenges and strengths in different ways. They began by introducing themselves.
My name's Katie. I'm Scott's wife. I also work for the Barnwood Trust. I love being social. We have a dog and a cat, which are our furry babies. And what else do I like to do? I like to read a lot and watch films.
I'm Scott Peacock. I am a big geek outside of work stuff, so I'm into my D&D and storytelling and big time into my video games. But you haven't got long enough for me to explain why, because I'm sure the podcast is shorter than 3.5 years. So I really love my theatre and acting and script writing and everything arts, but outside of professionalism, I'm a big geek. Anything geek, and I'm there.
Going to the theatre was what brought us together.
Keeps us together, yeah.
Well, we both enjoy that. I enjoy just watching, and obviously, as Scott says, he likes being on the stage.
I was interested to know how Katie and Scott have found the pandemic so far, a period of time that has presented a great many challenges for most people. How has the pandemic impacted on their mental health, as well as the feeling of control they had over their own care?
For me, I've been quite mellow my whole life, but I've always had key structural points to make sure that that's maintained. So the way I describe my life and how I keep things calm is I'm a Jenga. So as long as all the other pieces keep me together, it doesn't matter how many other pieces I lose to maintain the structure. But if the wrong Jenga piece is removed, then parts of me collapse. And I've never come across that to a degree that I have during the COVID situation in 2020, because I've had such highs and such lows in such a short period of time that the pieces aren't just one or two pieces every couple of months and then I can put the piece back in, and it's been maybe one or two 1 month and then 12 the next. It's just been a roller coaster is what I describe it as.
I think for myself, as Scott identifies, I self-identify as somebody with anxiety, that I've managed on and off for most of my life. But I would say in the beginning, I was kind of swept along with the whole "we're in this together" kind of thing. And that really gave me a lot of positivity. I was able to focus on all the sort of positive things that myself and Scott have in terms of our own home and our own care setup, and it was kind of a really unique feeling in the beginning, in the sense that I really felt part of something, even though it was a negative something. The community and everything, that we were coming together over something. As time's gone on, that sort of, not euphoric, but that kind of optimism, shall we say, has sort of dwindled, and it's become a lot more, as Scott described, roller coastery. Because we are in the house a lot more. It's just a lot more time. I've always been quite an introspective person. I always look inwardly anyway. But normally I have enough outside interest to distract me from those things. and where we've lost those smaller things that wouldn't normally bother me have started causing me to have anxiety again, and I know that's the case for lots of people, but I just don't think that we're in a position where it's always comfortable to talk about those feelings, and I think it would be nice to get to a place where more people can express those feelings of uncomfortableness and sort of it's a set for me. It's about I've always loved a sense of control. With the disability, I've always felt that I haven't had so much of a sense of control. And then when we got our care package and our home, and I felt that we had that sense of control. And I suppose the pandemic has shown me and the rest of the world that actually we're not in control of very much. But that's for all of us. So it's had its positives and its negatives, if that makes sense. One of the other things that I really enjoy and get a lot of kind of reassurance from is our time on our own and our time just to be a couple. But because we receive substantial amounts of care because of our physical needs, for our own safety and the team safety, we've really had to reduce the team down, which means we have a lot less interaction with individuals, but the interaction we have is a lot more intense for all parties. And as I've said before, I can be I'm quite an independent person, and I find being with people. One of the main things prior to lockdown that I had that used to help with my anxiety was my ability to wheel down to the shop totally independently of anybody, because I just had that space. It could be the equivalent of someone else going for a run or that sort of thing, your own space and no one else in that. But now not having that can be really difficult to manage, and we've really had to have some open and honest conversations about when we need that, all of us, about when we need that space, because we haven't been out now properly for we haven't really come out of lockdown, have we? So I don't feel like we've gone into a second one, if that makes sense. For me, a lot of it is also even the confidence of driving my chair outside, and the thought of if people are going to respect when I ask them to move away, causes me a lot of anxiety. So I'm not able to go even to the shop without somebody with me, which takes away that little bit of kind of mental freedom I used to give myself. There's something about other people's attitudes in the sense that I don't. At the beginning, I felt like, as I said, I felt a great sense that we were in it together. And within my community, within my street, I still feel that massively. And I'm massively grateful for that. And that's one of the things that keeps me strong. But on a wider scale, it feels like as the lockdowns become localized and much more divided, and people have gone back to work, things have sort of started to return to some sort of norm, but they're not quite normal. It feels like the divisions seem greater. Whether that's in my head or whether that exists is another matter. Even interacting with you now is harder than it would have been 3 months ago, because I just haven't had that level of interaction. So it's not my confidence in a lot of ways.
I thrive when it's a general issue that needs resolving. So I loved the whole Second World War vibe that we were getting. In particular, the sort of blitz. I was getting very blitz, general sort of public. And to me, because it's a general thing, that hasn't changed. So I thrive when it's like I have to go out and
look after your family.
Look after the, do the typical, for me anyway, looking after. So I found joy in working out what the rules were and making sure I followed them, and I saw people around me with the same. I think the reason I mentioned the blitz is everyone had that same risk or reward factor, and for me, I love being on. I don't resent people when we're all on the same par, and I'm very good at finding out how we're all connected, and that's how I stay positive 99% of the time, is that we're all on an equal par. We just got to find it. It's just I love how easily we can find it these days, because we're all having to follow the same rules if we go out. Generally, we all have to stay home and do the same kind of things. So that's allowed me to see just how well me and Kate work, for example, as well, is because disability or not, we all have the same limitation as yourself or others. And for me, that makes me go, I can, because I was very much brought up with this, I enjoyed the same perspective as my grandfather and grandma. And that's where the blitz stuff and being part of your community and everyone's equal, really. They just don't realize it until the community has to prove it to themselves. And the actual challenge for me was actually, how do I do that on an individual basis? So I was like, right, let's go, let's all work together once I'm out in the street, because if I come across a challenge that I have to overcome for an elderly person that I don't know, that mentality that my grandfather and grandmother passed into me kicks in, and I go, work it out. But because the way I see it, because it's my family that are top priority. But then I thought, how far does my family go? And that's when I started to crumble for a bit, because I thought, well, Kate, Monty, and Mush are cat and dog, and Kate, they're my family. And then I went, well, no, because I've got a PA team that I consider family. So how far does that go? And the pressure of actually, like, how are you? But also, when that person got bad news that meant that they had to leave for a fortnight, so if they got a family member that had a possible test that needs doing, I would have to revert right back to just protecting Kate and I, and our two fairy babies, as Kate put it. And that sudden juxtaposition between, I'm here for everyone, I'm my little bubble, and I mean it. Once they're in my little bubble, I'll do everything I can to having to shrink it. I would find the pride in being the lion of the house, and this is what I have to do. But equally, I'll be looking into the eyes of a person I feel I would be putting in risk just by going, you go and sort your own problem out, because you're the one with the positive or possible positive test. I've got to. So that would tear me down the middle, because I want to help as many people as I can. A small circle of people that I consider that, but once they're in it, they've got my back for life. But then when I'm having to say, that's your problem, to protect the smaller circle, that really messed with my head. So I'd actually find myself wanting to go out to get that sort of community. The personal part was the bit that was too much for me to digest. But if an old lady said, can you go all the way to Tesco's because I'm trapped in my house, even though I'm in a wheelchair, I'd be the first one to go, don't worry, I'll work out how to get somebody to hook it on the back of my chair, and I'll be back with you 3 years worth of shopping. So you don't have to go anywhere. I love that, but I thought I would thrive off of all areas of it. I'm getting better now, but I think it's guilt. I think it's guilt when I have to. I'm saying me a lot, but I'm sure it came from Kate as well. But for me, there's a lot of guilt of who do I protect when I've got such a large team, because I'm seen as the sort of manager of the team as well, in the staff sense. So when I have to make tough decisions, I'm like, this isn't just a care team. This is a family to me. So do I? Yeah, like I said, do I do? It's constant juggling, and I've never had to juggle that much. I've always had to just juggle maybe the occasional staff issue between Kate and me, and that happens once every 6 months.
For me, especially in the beginning, Scott mentions guilt. I had guilt, but for different reasons. I had guilt because, as I say, we have worked very hard to have the level of independence and freedom in our lives that we have. Well, we don't have now because of the COVID, but we have now generally in terms of making choices about where we go and what we do and who we interact with. But in my mind, I was aware of previous situations where we've lived in supported living environments, say, where that hasn't been the case. And that's part of the reason I work for the trust, I would say, and part of my passion in life is that I feel more disabled people and people with mental health challenges should have more rights and choice over those sort of crucial decisions in life. And so rather than, I've kind of tried to, as time has gone on, rather than feeling guilty for it, I want to speak out to enable others to realise that capacity is there.
We've often found strength in the you know, together when we've had our various stresses or panics from different perspectives. So where I was saying, and then Kate's, we actually would go, well, imagine what it would be like if this happened 7 years ago when we were in the crux of the worst care experience we've ever had. And that conversation would need to be had for my state of mind, so I could say, well, obviously I've done a good job as a husband and a good job as a manager of PAs in order to maintain this and get exactly what we want. But then that would then trigger Kate's perspective, which would be, well, think of the poor people that are still there. And it'd be like, that's why I say we work really well because we're each other's yin and yang. We're really lucky in that regard. Yeah. So I can say to Kate, look, if we get through this, I know you'll help people. But if you let me help you and I get through this, because that's what I'm good at, and we joked at the beginning that we think we would have like killed each other, but actually, yeah, and again we know how lucky that is. We've realised just how much of a people have told us, haven't we?
Yeah,
that we're like yin and yang to each other, but until you actually have to. You don't have it until it's either too late or works perfectly. So we're lucky enough to say 99% of the time it works perfectly.
And I think that's been another very important thing for us, in that we do both have very different interests, so we've been able to go off and have those separate interests.
Yeah. I'm a big theatre and arts, but that's who I am. It's so ingrained in me, and Kate will tell you without getting into a, like I said, 3.5 year conversation with you about how much that is a massive part of my life.
It's definitely his passion, the theatre and the arts.
It's all I've studied. It's who I am. I'm used to people saying no when you go for an audition. What I'm not used to, and I'm sure a lot of theatre people, if you got a chance to speak to them, is maybe, because of this COVID, is making a maybe. And these maybes aren't tiny, like you've missed an audition. It's maybe you don't have a job to go back to ever again. And that maybe is way more petrifying, because it was like, this isn't what I've been trained to do. So then I became I'm very proud of that I'm in the theatre and the arts. I use it as one of those Jenga pieces that keeps me sane. So when I wasn't able to either say to Kate, oh, I've missed this time, but I tell you what, next time there's another audition or there's a someone I can talk to that will help me launch this or launch that. For the first time, I'd have to say to Kate, when she was anxious about her business situation, some of our actual disagreements would be, yeah, but you've got a job to go back to. I don't know if the industry as a whole will survive. You'll get a no or a yes on your current job. Worst case scenario, when Kate had her fears. But I don't know if what I live for, and I know it sounds like if I lose that I'm gonna spiral completely, but it is 50% of who I am. If you speak to any artist person, it's a big.
And I think for you as well, Scott, I know you've said to me before that for you as a man, it's been very important for you to be able to. You've had to adjust to me being the provider, me being the one that goes out to work. Before that was a lot easier to digest because you had other projects, other irons in the fire. They were always there.
Yeah, if it didn't succeed, there'd be a lot of times where I'd have to say no income because of the industry I've chosen. And I would understand why Kate would accept that, because she'd go, that's the nature of the beast. You either come home with this amount of money one day, or you could go months without. But now I have to say to her, it's not even based on next month, or like Kate said perfectly, stokes of a fire. The fire's gone out as I saw it months ago.
And I again, not to sort of over-dramatize it, but I think it's fair to say that as a disabled person, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, as a disabled person, you found it hard enough to get to that point anyway of having the stokes in the fire to even for people to take you seriously. That when that started to go out, it's taken you a lot further back.
When I started realizing, hang on, that whole fire might be out, so I might just be the thing that I've spent 20 years studying is gone. And then I thought, well, what do I do?
I've been so blessed, and I can say now, I'm not getting paid to say, I've been so blessed that I have that reason to get up 2 days a week and get dressed for the Barmer, and that literally has been the rest of the week. I don't know. That's probably the same for a lot of people, but I don't really get up or get dressed or have that motivation. But for those 2 days a week, I've been able to have that motivation, and that's been brilliant on the one hand, but it's also one thing it has taught me, and it's something I'm still grappling with, I suppose, is I'm so blessed to be in a position again where I'm a disabled person with employment, working from home and able to do that, and that is so, it's always been part of my personality to be able to be giving something back. But the thing that I'm struggling with is when I'm in that workspace, I like to be with people in person. I've already said previously, haven't I, that working like this knocks my confidence lots. And put on top of that, only working through a keyboard and through the computer, which I've never, it's no secret to anyone that it's not one of my top skills to be technically savvy. I sometimes find it very hard because I thrived on that human interaction, and that's where my skills lie, and now I'm having to redefine that. And I suppose it's the same for a lot of people, but having had a disability, I suppose from the beginning, from the outset of trying to get work in the first place, I had to prove that I could do it, because there were lots of people that said, oh, it won't last, or other people will do your job for you. And now I'm having to redefine that in a way I never expected, which is quite daunting. And so access to work, I've been given lots of new equipment and new programs that would help with my dyslexia, because I'm dyslexic. But because of the situation, I would normally have support to go alongside that to teach me how to use it. But because of the current situation, the only way that can operate is online like this. And as I've already said, that's really not my favoured way of learning anyway. So it's going very slowly, and I'm a very determined person, so it'll keep going, I can assure you that. But it's a very frustrating situation. But again, coming back to that sense of guilt, I feel some guilt sometimes that I'm getting frustrated about being in a position where I've got a job where lots and lots of disabled people, including my husband, don't even get to that opportunity. So it's sometimes just very hard to give yourself, and this could be my personality and part of my anxiety, but sometimes very hard to give yourself a break. And I don't think, with all this talk of people being on shielding lists and the sense of separation and dividing people, whether it be through not just disability, it's happened over race, religion, there are lots of things that divide us. And I think with that sense of division, it doesn't help personally with my anxiety.
Katie and Scott were also eager to discuss the positives that they had experienced during the pandemic. Both very passionate people, they told me about their various interests that give them strength.
The things that keep us strong are the fact we have pets, the fact we have something that relies on us. That's very important to me. As I said, because of our physical needs, we're reliant on others, but our pets are very, very reliant on us, and we do as much, if not all of that, as independently as we possibly can. So that relationship has been really key. And I'm so glad we managed to get the dog before lockdown, because we've been able to spend lots of time training and bonding, and that's been really, really positive. And I have a cat called Monty, who is literally like a baby. He's a rescue cat, so he'll sit with me for literally hours and let me stroke him, and I find that so soothing and calming. That's been amazing. And I think being in a relationship, not to sound too cheesy, but having somebody else that understands what you're going through to support you is another and to have a sense of humour and sort of, take the edge off my seriousness sometimes, but like Scott said, yin and yang, balance it out, has really, really helped. And really little things like the fact that our neighbours next door have already put their Christmas decorations up, and when it was, I always forget to get a pumpkin, but my neighbour brought us a pumpkin round this year, and so we are very lucky in that our street is very community led, isn't it? That's been helping a lot. Yeah, I think that's me.
If you spoke to the Scott 3 months ago and said, right, pedal what you think you're capable of doing, there wouldn't be any pedaling, because I'm sure it's come across that I'm quite confident. To not be just was really odd and quite scary. And only when did I have this kind of like eureka? And it was out of nowhere. I think I hit my bottom so fast that my personality, and what worries me and why I agreed to doing this talk as well as bringing out my personality, is I only bounce because I have a bounce. have a hefty bounce about me in more ways than one. But that only happened because of how confident I am as a person overall, and I don't want people to hit their rock bottom and not be able to bounce like I did, bounce back. I had that realization, so I'm a fourth wall breaking 4D director. I want to implement fourth wall breaking techniques, and I actually got that from video games. I want to do that in theatre because I can see how it works. And actually, I've got to give credit to who I've got to give credit to. The play that I watched that made me go, I can bring that. That's really out farther than I expected, but I can still bring that out. Is the War of the Worlds. But it blew my mind that they literally brought this further than I've ever seen on stage, to the point where it looked as if they were about to singe the audience's hair with fire. And I thought, yes, that's the kind of thing. But even then, I was like, no, they're not. They're not quite there. They're not quite doing it. They're not obviously not setting people's hair on that. But you know, I thought of other things that when they were bringing it back to the stage, no, bring it out further. So I was like, Eureka, Kate, I need to write this. I've literally written it down because I was like, this is it. So as you can see, I'm a lot more wings out now that we're talking about that. But
I on the other hand, haven't really had a eureka moment as such. But I have had a, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful to have what we've got moment, and I really appreciate where we've been. And even the fact that I can be open about my mental health. Yes, it's still there, the anxiety still happens, but I can be open about it, and I know now much clearer how to deal with it, because I can be open and honest about it. So that's been a big positive, and I think that's helped a lot of other people feel they can say when they're having difficulties too. And I think one of the biggest positives for me has been about staying connected with my family, even though they live in Lincolnshire. I think quite often we take things for granted. And my granddad actually had COVID and very luckily survived. So that's made me closer to my family, even though I'm further away. Because we see each other nearly every other day on Skype like this, and we've got things planned over Christmas for that type of thing as well. And I think it makes you see those things, and those things feel all the more important when we're in such a situation.
yeah, don't include me in that, boss.
Of course.
Eh?
That goes without saying.
But yeah.
I thought I'd said that quite a lot already.
Finally, I asked what their plans were for the future and if they had any hopes for things they'd like to do in the coming months.
I've got a list of things I want to do. Making that list of things to do, some of which are very extravagant and will take more doing than others, but making that list has given me something to focus on. We've talked about travel being very important to us. And again, I'm under no illusion that having these options is something that we're very kind of lucky and blessed to have the options of choices of things that we're going to do in the future, and that freedom. So I look forward to spreading that message and hoping that I can help others make them feel like they can speak out, and yeah, even more so.
Well, I kind of second what Kate says on some things, but it's also shown me that come 2021, that there aren't, because of how lucky we are, and like how I need to do all I can to support Kate to speak out, and in terms of making sure more people have it, but when you realise that actually the only real barrier we've got at the moment is COVID, because of how good our care is, me especially, I realised how many excuses I made just through life challenge, like, oh, that'll be a bit nerve-wracking to do that, or I'll do it next year. It's allowed me to go that we're in an incredibly lucky situation to go. There aren't any. This is a true barrier to, because they're shut down, they're closed, or they're not happening. But if I was going to just say one word to what I'm looking forward to 2021, you're probably going to guess what that is, and that's going to be stage. I need some sort of stage, because honestly, my wings need spreading. I need to do everything I can, not just for myself, but everything I can to make the theatre industry flourish once again, because it, not just on a personal basis, but it is something that is probably the last of a few things that keeps us all together in a live, shared, they're all sat on in the same area, on the seats next to each other, but they're all experiencing either the same, a lot of them are either experiencing the same thing, or what's most important of all about theatre to me is that some of them aren't experiencing the same thing as the person sat to them on their left. And you can't really express that when you look at a screen. And theatre brings the people together on a live basis, because this is how this yin yang happened. So I want more people to fall madly in love and then get locked in a house and realise that actually we're all right. So
yeah, you're not bad yourself.
That's the conclusion. You're right.
I'll keep you.
I'll give you a 7. 9 for effort.
Oh, okay. I'll take that.
Thank you for listening to Katie and Scott's story for My Pandemic, a podcast by Balmer Trust. If you would like to tell your story, then get in touch. Email info@balmertrust.org. For more information on Balmer Trust and the work we do, visit www.balmertrust.org.